Chapter 3. Understanding the Why in Misunderstanding, the Jury Duty. Experience. Have you ever thought you understood how the world should handle mistakes? Yours, someone else's, all of us tripping over life's challenges, only to realize that real understanding might require far more patience than you imagined? That's how I felt when I was summoned for jury duty. I expected something tedious, hours of statements, a quick verdict, and then a sigh of relief when it ended. But in that courtroom, I found a lesson on how deeply and carefully we can, perhaps should, approach human error. It made me wonder why we don't bring even a fraction of this thoroughness into everyday life. I remember the first morning I walked in. The hallway was polished, officials were everywhere, and I felt a knot of anxiety in my chest. I knew that in this setting, I couldn't lean on my usual gut reactions. We were told to consider fairness, equity, and the rule of law, principles that go beyond any one individual. It wasn't about my personal feelings, but about making sure no discrimination or bias guided our decisions. At first, that seemed like overkill for a single mistake or conflict. Then, as we started hearing testimonies, it struck me. Nearly every mistake has hidden layers, backstories, extenuating pressures. If I rarely pause in my normal routine to dig for that context, how many times have I judged someone or myself without really knowing the full story? Let's take a small step back and consider how we usually deal with mishaps. A friend forgets your birthday, so you label them inconsiderate. A coworker misses a deadline, so you brand them lazy. You oversleep and think you're hopelessly undisciplined. Doesn't it often end right there with a simple label and a flush of annoyance or shame? We seldom stop to ask, what actually led up to this? It's not just about giving empathy to the person who erred. It's also about understanding the bigger ripple effect. Did that slip-up hurt someone? If so, how do we address it fairly so it doesn't keep happening? That's the crux. Accountability balanced with a willingness to see the bigger picture. Sometimes it helps to imagine yourself as a detective instead of a judge. Instead of hammering the gavel and shouting, "Guilty," the moment you see wrongdoing, you gather clues. You ask questions. Could your coworker be drowning in more tasks than you realized? Could your friend have personal troubles that overshadowed your birthday? It doesn't let them off the hook if they caused real harm that needs acknowledging, but it might prevent turning a small misunderstanding into a grand falling out. In the courtroom, we kept seeing how the same event could look drastically different depending on vantage points. I left thinking, what if I tried that vantage-taking in real life? Could it reduce how many times I jumped to the worst conclusion about someone's motives or about my own worth? It reminds me of the judge's repeated reminder that justice must serve not just the individual, but society. If we are too lenient, real harm might go unaddressed and people lose faith in fairness. If we're too punitive, we ignore context and risk punishing the wrong person or ignoring deeper causes. In personal terms, maybe I refrain from labeling a friend toxic the first time they mess up. But if they keep doing harm, I hold them to account, maybe by setting a boundary or insisting on an apology. That's serving the greater bond we share, and also serving my own mental well-being. We might see that approach as a personal rule of law, where I don't let random impulses or disproportionate anger rule my response. Think about a recent conflict you experienced, maybe with a family member, friend, or colleague. Did you stop to consider both sides of the story before deciding how you felt? Or did you automatically trust your version? If you'd paused to gather more context, might you have discovered a reason, not an excuse, but a reason for their behavior? Sometimes that pause alone can diffuse anger. It can also help you articulate your feelings more calmly and figure out what accountability looks like an apology or a promise to do better, or a new boundary that keeps the same issue from recurring. In the jury room, we also learn to separate the wrongdoing from the person's entire identity. That was surprisingly hard. It's simpler to call someone a bad apple and be done. But the reality we faced was more nuanced. Maybe they'd made a serious mistake that harmed someone else, yet they also had a background of complicated stressors or emotional triggers. Again, context doesn't negate responsibility. We never gave them a free pass. If the evidence showed wrongdoing, consequences followed. But it made us see that behind every misdeed could lie a swirl of events. That swirl doesn't mean no harm was done. It just means we handled it with clarity and proportion rather than raw condemnation. Now, I try bringing that distinction home. If I see a friend or colleague doing something hurtful, I try not to conflate the act with their entire being. I might say, "You did something that affected me negatively. I need you to own that." But I don't necessarily jump to, "You're a horrible person." This reframe also applies to myself. I messed up. Let me see why I did it, how I can fix it, and how I can prevent it next time, instead of, "I'm a worthless failure." The difference might seem small, but it's huge in terms of mental health and relationship resilience. Of course, we can't replicate a full trial for every slip. We don't always have hours or days to deliberate, but even a few minutes of deeper reflection can shift outcomes. Suppose someone close to you repeatedly fails to follow through on promises. Are you sure they're just lazy or self-absorbed? Perhaps they're juggling invisible burdens. Talk it out. But remember to keep accountability in the mix. I see you're overwhelmed, but your repeated no-shows hurt me. How can we fix this so it stops happening? That's a microcosm of justice. No bias, no ignoring of real harm, but a willingness to see the root cause. If this sounds too idealistic, recall that a court trial is extremely deliberate for a reason. People's lives can be upended by rash verdicts. On a smaller scale, our relationships can be damaged by the same rashness. We might cut off a friend or internalize shame about ourselves, never realizing a fix was possible. By channeling some of that court-like diligence, we open the door to fairer, more constructive handling of mistakes. Try this. Next time you witness a slip-up or cause one yourself, imagine pressing pause. Ask, what led here? Who's hurt? And how do we address that hurt while recognizing context? Then proceed. It may feel slow, but it could save you from cyclical arguments or a scorched earth meltdown. Another lesson from the jury experience is that justice is about more than the immediate players. Our verdict, the judge explained, contributed to the entire community's trust in the system. Likewise, when you or someone else messes up, how you respond can shape the environment around you. If you adopt a balanced approach, some empathy, some firmness, others might feel safer owning their errors. Or they might emulate that approach when they see you fail. It's a ripple effect, guiding your family, team, or circle of friends toward a healthier, more honest culture. Let's talk about real practice. Think of a mild conflict from your life right now, something that's bugging you but hasn't exploded. Can you for a moment see if there's a hidden factor you never considered? Maybe you do a quick check-in with the other person. Hey, I've been feeling X because of Y. What's going on from your side? That small question can unravel assumptions and open a path for them to say, I didn't realize you saw it that way. Then you decide on accountability. This still needs addressing, so let's figure out a solution. If they respond poorly, you know you tried. But if they respond well, you might avert a meltdown. Some might argue that we're not all cut out for such calm reflection. True, in heated moments, we default to emotion or old patterns. But the main insight from the jury was that with some structure and a principle of fairness in mind, humans can do better than reflex condemnation. We can weigh facts, ask clarifying questions, and walk away with more thorough, if not perfect, conclusions. I left that courthouse with a deeper sense of how mistakes happen within webs of context, both for the person who commits them and those who suffer the consequences. Instead of labeling someone irredeemable or letting them slide entirely, we strove for a decision that acknowledged real damage, yet also recognized humanity. Translating that to daily life means pausing to see if we can uphold the same principles: equity, no bias, accountability, and a sense that we're all part of something larger than one single conflict. Maybe the biggest takeaway is this: Every mistake, big or small, is an intersection of stories. If we only see one perspective, usually our own, we're likely to deliver a skewed judgment. But if we can slow down, gather a bit more insight, and ensure real consequences follow real harm, we inch closer to justice in the small corners of life. It's a practice, not a quick fix. Yet each time we do it, we reinforce the kind of environment where people can face their errors, find fair resolutions, and move on with less bitterness and more growth. So the next time you or someone close falters, ask yourself, am I seeing the complete picture? Am I giving them or myself a fair hearing? Do I hold them accountable while still remembering they're more than this single act? That might shift a reactive storm into a chance for truth, resolution, and maybe even a stronger bond afterward. And in a world filled with daily stumbles, that's no small gift. This new lens, seeing multiple sides, balancing empathy with responsibility, can carry into every conflict, from minor spats with a roommate to big rifts in a friendship. If we treat everyday mistakes with a dash of that jury-like diligence, we become less reactive, more open, and ironically, more decisive. Because a clear, fair verdict, "This wasn't okay, here's how we move forward," feels more grounded than a knee-jerk condemnation. Concluding reflection. Whether it's the law or daily relationships, the gist is the same. Context matters, harm must be acknowledged, and real fairness calls us to consider how we fix or prevent the error going forward. Maybe we can't replicate the entire jury process for each slip, but we can adopt its spirit. Weigh facts, check biases, respect accountability, and see if this path to resolution serves not just the individuals, but the bonds or community we share. It's a lofty ideal, but even small steps toward it might reduce the whirl of needless blame and open more avenues for genuine repair. Final questions for action. Where in your life do you tend to jump to blame, yourself or others, without examining potential context? What's one small shift you can make to gather more facts before deciding? Think of a relationship that's strained by repeated mistakes. How could you apply a balance of empathy and firm accountability to break the cycle? If you were to adopt a mini trial process, next time a friend or coworker slips up, what simple questions would you ask before handing down your mental verdict? Pick just one question to act on this week, observing if it leads to deeper conversations or healthier outcomes. Small changes in how we handle errors can gradually create a culture of fairness, respect, and genuine resolution, both for ourselves and the people we care about.